And welcome everybody to Pregame Yard Prep here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I am your host, Louis Sung. I'm joined by Eric Wiedeke. Ethan Skolnick may be joining us shortly from the stadium. He is live on site as the Miami Dolphins get ready to face off against the Las Vegas Raiders, coming back to Hard Rock Stadium, where they will hopefully be able to continue clawing their way back into playoff contention. When we last left off, the Dolphins were one game away from the last wild card spot. Now, again, ideally, it's not great that we're fighting for the last seed of the playoffs, but you never know. Things can happen, and once you get in, it's anybody's game at that point. We've been saying for a while, or at least I have been saying for a while, the Miami Dolphins are better than what their record indicates. If you missed out on that, you can check out Pulse of Fins Nation. You can see what we had to say this past Tuesday, and make sure that you check that out before game time. So if you're watching this, great. We're glad to have you. After that, you can go and check out Pulse if you missed it on Tuesday. So we'll get into all of the stuff that we're going to be checking out as the game progresses. We're going to be checking out the inactives list as it comes out. But before we do all that, just want to go ahead and mention that, as always, this show is brought to you by our good friends over at prizepicks.com. Make sure you use the promo code 5, that's F-I-V-E, and they will match up to $100 on your deposit when you sign up. Again, that's promo code 5, F-I-V-E. You go ahead and you join up. Actually, I think I used the old promo, didn't I? It's actually $5 bet. You get $50 in promotional funds. It's hard for me to keep track sometimes. I apologize. So make a $5 bet. You get $50 in promotional funds when you sign up using the promo code 5. Ethan is currently texting me saying that it is not showing up on his system. So I'm going to go ahead and I will let you take charge for the moment, Eric, while I get that sorted out. Tell us about what your thoughts are into this game. What are we looking at? What are we checking out? What's going on?
Yeah, so I mean, first things first, when it comes to the Raiders, this is not a very good football team. I think we can get that kind of out of the way relatively quickly. And so if the Dolphins are going to be looked at as, if this whole comeback attempt to save the season is going to be taken seriously, this is a game where the Dolphins have to actually thoroughly beat the Raiders. It is not enough to win this game by 3 points. It's not enough to win this game by 6 points. This has to be a game where Miami comes out, especially off the heels of Deshaun Elliott coming out and calling the defense soft. This needs to be one of those games where it's just nonstop from the first minute to the 60th minute. The Dolphins come out and they dominate this Raiders team. They have the players on offense to do it. I know that Teron Armstead is kind of iffy. They did call up Jackson Carman from the practice squad, so that might not be a great sign for him, but I have full confidence in Patrick Paul. Like I said, this is a game where the Dolphins have to come out and dominate. The defensive line was fantastic against LA. There's no reason why they shouldn't be just as good, if not better, against Vegas. This is a game that has to be won and won easily.
All right, and now we welcome Ethan Skolnick to the show. Ethan, I just realized that I said that here's the link, and then I never actually posted the link. My apologies. I sent the link out to individuals before I put out the YouTube link, and so I got all mixed up. But anyway, I digress. So you are on site. You are at Hard Rock Stadium, and you're going to be checking out everything that happens on the field as it happens. So what are the initial impressions? Like, is there a strong sense of Dolphins fandom out there? Are the tailgates going strong, or is everybody just kind of like meh about everything right now as we speak?
Well, I kind of slid into my spot pretty early today, so I haven't had any problems. Typically, I'm in well, Ross sends us out to like we're basically on the turnpike by the swamp. But essentially, if you go to this media lot, typically at this time, when I come here between 11:15 and 11:35, I'm parked all the way towards the end. And this time, not only am I not parked all the way towards the end, but no cars have come in after me. So I don't know if the media realizes there's a game today or not, but it was pretty easy to get here today. I have a feeling even though the weather is good, that we're probably not going to get a full house. I don't know that fans gave up their tickets and gave up on the season. That feels a little bit too strong, but there's certainly some who are frustrated when they fell to 2-6, and maybe they did make other plans for this weekend. I mean, you talked about this when you came in. This is a must-win. Obviously, you lose this game, we can stop having all these other conversations. They talked about running the table. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think that we talked about it. Once they hit bottom, they had to go 7-2, and so now you've got to go 6-2 to crawl out of this. They don't have a ton of difficult games on the schedule. They should get the next two. They should go into Green Bay, at 5-6, and that's kind of a toss-up game then if you're playing reasonably well. And I think today is the day that we're going to talk about the running game and the things that they've kind of learned during the period that Tua was out, what they have to implement. But I think this is a game he's going to need to throw it around a little bit. I think this is we talked. Eversole and I talked about this. He hasn't gone over on his prize pick on yardage. Now, one of them he was taken out early, obviously because he got hurt, but he hasn't gone over in his last 5. I think it's 243.5 today. I think he's going to have to go over that today. And I also would play the Hill prop today. I'm playing Hill and Bowers together. Bowers went under last week. He was over the previous 4. We know the Dolphins historically have not covered the tight end very well. Maybe this group will be a little bit different, but they've had some changes, obviously, in their front 7 and the linebacker position in particular. And the safety position has been kind of on and off this year. So I would go over on Hill and Bowers prop together. I would go over on Hill. But I think this is a game that we're going to have to see Tua make some throws down the field and try to put this thing away early.
So we'll get into some more props later on as the show progresses. We have I'm going to be pulling up the board for everybody, but I wanted to go ahead and show this one off. So we're talking about the running game here. So this is currently the inactives list for the Miami Dolphins. So something to keep in mind here. Once again, we are looking at it. We have Jeff Wilson Jr., Ethan Bonner, Kendall Fuller is still out with a concussion. Once again, for the second week in a row, and this is where it seems like Tua is going to be getting a lot of throws here. Alec Ingold is inactive, presumably with that same calf injury. So we already saw last week when Alec Ingold left that the running game had to take a major step back, which is unfortunate. But now we're going to be doing it 2 weeks in a row. And for all intents and purposes, Tua, he did decent against the Rams. Like, it wasn't anything spectacular, but he did a decent job, and they scored points, and that's really all that mattered in the end. But now we have a Raiders team where, in reality, the Raiders are not good. Let's be real about this. The Raiders are not a good football team by any stretch of the imagination. And they're going to be, I think their starting quarterback is Gardner Minshew. So there's not a whole lot on this Raiders team that can really scare you. Like, they even went and finally traded Devontae Adams. So there's not really much that you can look at here and say, oh yeah, we definitely need to be worried about this. So in essence, Tua throwing the ball a lot, it should not be a concern. He definitely should go over his prop. Again, I will pull that up shortly. But it is concerning that we've missed Alec Ingold 2 weeks in a row, because now, once again, we have Mike McDaniel trying to adapt to the loss of – let's be real about this. Alec Ingold is a crucial key factor in this offense. His ability to be a lead blocker is unparalleled. Like, nobody on this team can do it as well as he can. And I mean, he's a fullback. That back in the day, though, that's what a fullback was. That was his job. And Miami has taken back that classic position and made it important again. It's very telling that you can tell when your fullback is missing, because the running game suddenly is nowhere near as effective as it used to be. Everything else, Mo Kamara, Andrew Meyer, D. Eskridge, none of that is very surprising. I'm sure that River Craycraft is going to get his fair share of snaps again, probably acting as a blocker, trying to make up for the fact that Alec Ingold is gone. I wouldn't be surprised. So we need Miami to, if Tua is going to throw the ball a lot, this would be the week to do it. And hopefully that it doesn't come back to bite them, because if they become too one-dimensional, then it doesn't matter how bad a team is. If they just pin their ears back and go after Tua, eventually something's going to go wrong.
Yeah, Eric, I'm going to get in one more here because I'm going to lose connection here, but I'll throw this to you before I go. Do you think that in the time that we talked a lot with Tua about how teams were squeezing the middle on him, taking things away, that teams had figured him out to a certain degree, even before the injury. Like they had figured out the Dolphin passing him. Then we see Tua go out. It obviously gets worse. He comes back. They've put up, 27, 23 since he's come back. So more consistent with his regular numbers. Are we still going with the premise that teams have figured him out?
I wouldn't say him necessarily. I would say it's probably more endemic of the Mike McDaniel offense more than anything. But I don't know if it's really figuring them out so much as knowing what McDaniel wants to do and understanding the pet concepts. Because the offense can succeed doing different things. We saw that against Buffalo. They
Right.
took what the defense gave them, and it worked. It's really just up to the Dolphins to kind of make that adjustment. I don't think it's something foundational to the offense that you say, oh, well, it's been figured out. We need to scrap everything and restart.
I think that's fair. Lewis, what do you think? Because we've talked so much about the running game, but they haven't had the big breakout passing game yet. Like, not, the 350, the 4 touchdowns, the kind of stuff that we used to see. Are we done seeing it?
I mean, I honestly, I think we are, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's more boring. I'll give you that. It's not as exciting as it used to be. But the reality is that look across the league. This is something I've been saying for the past several weeks. Across the league, teams are emphasizing the run game a lot more than they used to. It's like we're almost going back to the retro days of football, where it was more important to have a strong running game than it was to have a super quarterback. Like even in the Marino era, if Marino just had a decent running game, they could have won some Super Bowls. They relied so much on the passing game way before it was supposed to be cool. And so now we're going back to those days. Like look at the Ravens right now with Lamar Jackson. You would think that with Lamar Jackson making as much money as he does, they'd be leaning on him super heavy. But in reality, it's just Derrick Henry. It's not just Derrick Henry, but Derrick Henry is carrying a lot of the load for Baltimore. On Price, look, let's go back to Price Picks. Price Picks, they have this thing, right, where they have the goblins and the demons, and the demons you make more money, the goblins you make less money because it's an easier prop. For Derrick Henry to score a touchdown is now considered a goblin, which means it's an easy pick. It's an easy pick for you to say Derrick Henry's going to run for a touchdown. That should just show you exactly how heavy they lean on him in Baltimore.
Lewis, McCaffrey too. McCaffrey's a goblin today on half a rushing touchdown, and I took it because when you look back at McCaffrey and Derrick Henry, they always get a touchdown. So you're right. I mean, there has been more of a focus on that, and I don't think the Dolphins can pivot to that entirely. Obviously, Mostert has lost McDaniel's confidence right now.
I think Mostert comes back today.
I think he does. But again, we talked before the year, and I said, look, he's not going to be the same guy this year. That was a little bit of a blip. He had a great season last year. Leaned on him a lot. I think you're going to see more and more of Wright as we go forward. But I do think what we're seeing is McDaniel's not going to be that guy where he's going to rely totally on the run game. I think the Dolphins have to be able to show at some point here that they can be explosive. I don't think they have to be explosive all the time. But I think it would be a confidence boost for this offense if they can hit. I think he's going to hit one to Hill today. I do. I think it's going to be a priority that they try to get him going. Even last week, look, Hill had a touchdown. He only had 5 targets and 3 catches and 16 yards. Like, he has not backed himself. And Waddle, I thought, showed some signs last week. But, again, he has not had the big breakout game this year either. What made this offense special was the ability on the guys on the outside to make game-turning plays. That has not really happened this year. Hill's been over 100 yards once, right? And that was the day he got arrested here at the stadium. Like, that's been it. So they need to I think they need to find a way to get some confidence today. Not just win the game, but get some confidence that they can be explosive. And then there's going to be other games. They're going to that game against Green Bay. They're going to need the running game, for sure. There's going to be other games that they do, but I think today they need to be on a little more of attack mode. I'm going to lose reception here. I'm going to go in the stadium. We'll have coverage on the YouTube channel today and on Instagram of everything that goes on here at the game. Obviously, Lewis will take you post game. I'll try to pop on that there as well. Also, check out a news story on the website from Jake Michelle, where he gets through some of the keys for today as well. So check it out. Thanks, guys. I'll let you guys take it from here.
All right. Thank you very much, Ethan. Well, I want to go ahead and I'll submit this to you, Eric. And I understand what Ethan is saying because from a standpoint of getting confidence, I get it. But I feel like trying to force explosiveness is a mistake. I don't think that's something that they should do. I don't think that's something that they will do because the reality is, again, this is where I keep coming back to this. The entire philosophy of the NFL has changed. They're now being forced to run the ball more. Teams are making an emphasis on stopping the pass at all costs, at the expense of allowing running backs to basically run wild on them. So when I say that it's a mistake, this is what I mean. For the past couple of weeks, since Tua has come back, Miami has basically made their points on just taking whatever the defense gives them. And when the defense is literally making it so that they have the 2 high safeties, they have the linebackers pushed back to make sure the middle of the field is protected. If that is the case, then I go back to the years of Tom Brady and him just absolutely making us miserable for 2 decades of AFC East. He took whatever Miami gave them, and usually that just ended up being a little 5-yard dunk that went for 10 yards, a little 6-yard pass over here that went for 15 yards, a little 2-yard screen pass here that ended up going for 7 yards. That he made his whole career doing that and winning consistently. In fact, he won so many times he ran out of fingers on one hand for all his rings. Like that's how he made his whole career. And so for Miami to come out against the Raiders, if the Raiders go out and use the same defensive philosophy that every other team has been using all year long, literally designed to stop Tyreek and Waddle from exploding over the top, it would be a mistake to try to make explosiveness happen. Good offenses take whatever is given to them. And if the Raiders feel like that they can win by letting Tua take 6-yard, 7-yard, 5-yard passes all over the place and just paper cuts all over the place, take it. You will score. Once you get to that goal line, you will be fine. Just get over there and score. Do not force something that does not exist because they are designing the defense to stop it from existing.
So I agree, and I also disagree. In that, if you look at your example, the Ravens, Lamar Jackson is having his best passing season to date ever. He's on pace to set career highs in touchdowns, yards, all that. The reason is because of very much what you mentioned. And that's where I don't think it has to be this mutually exclusive issue to where, the Dolphins are just never explosive ever again. I think the idea is that you take what the defense gives you and you beat them over the head with it so much that eventually they play you a little bit differently. And then when they do play you differently,
but when they play you differently, right? But they play you differently. And if they decide to give you that shot over the top, you take it. So the philosophy hasn't changed. You take whatever they give you, whatever that happens to be on any given play.
Right. I mean, because throwing the ball straight into double coverage over the top is just not sound decision making. Now, granted, is that something that I think Tua would do to prove a point? Yes. Let's just call it spade a spade there. But I think that the Dolphins are very well equipped to do exactly what you mentioned, and because the whole idea is Tyreek Hill is every bit. I almost think we've forgotten this. He is every bit as dangerous. What wasn't he originally supposed to be the yards after catch guy, and then eventually he became the deep threat?
That's what he was.
Now, that's not to say that those two things are mutually exclusive. Like, you can do both, but Tyreek Hill, one of the best yards after catch guys in the league. Jalen Waddle, really good yards after catch guy. Jonnu Smith, really good yards after catch guy. Like, they're equipped to take these small passes and go the distance. That was the whole knock on Tua the first year of Mike McDaniel's offense, was nobody was watching them, and they just assumed the Dolphins were taking 2-yard passes 80 yards. Well, now the Dolphins can play into that. And I don't think it's a bad thing for the offense. And, as the season wears on, I think you will see more of Jalen Wright. I looked up a stat today. He's averaging 3.7 yards after contact every rush. Now, much smaller sample size, but that's the exact same number as number 22 in Baltimore. And I'll let you figure out who that is. Much smaller sample size, mind you, but they have guys that can get those tougher yards, that can wear defenses down and eventually bring the box in. And I think that they will at some point. And I do think that will happen probably at least once today.
All right, that's fine. I mean, again, I'm not against explosiveness. I'm against trying to force something that's not there. That's my point. Don't make it happen. If the Raiders refuse to give in and don't give it to you, don't bother trying to take something that they're not going to give up. That's my point. So let me go ahead and now I'll pull up the Prize Picks props here. So we've got plenty to work with here. I went ahead and because I'm trying to get a win here. It's been a while since I've won, and that's annoying. Like last night, I got 2 out of 3 again, which is the worst feeling in the world because the last 10 of them, I feel like I've gotten 2 out of 3. I always pick the wrong one, but I digress. So now with Alec Ingold out, I'm taking the Tua Tagovailoa passing yards. Again, I do think he's going to end up throwing it a lot today. And as for Brock Bowers, he's an interesting one. So do you feel like Brock Bowers would be a better choice for receptions or for yards, since I'm pulling him up right now? because I was looking at receptions, and so far with receptions for the past 2 games, he's gotten just shy of this. He's in at 5 exactly. Yeah. But the other games here, October 20th, October 13th, the October 6th, 8, 9, 10, like he's basically the main target. And now with the Devontae Adams out, he's not here anymore. He's with the Jets. You would think that Bowers is going to get even more run than before.
What I think is going on there is that Bowers is, because he is the sole focus of the offense, he's also the sole focus of the defense. And so I think that teams are trying to make it a point to, get him the ball less. And I know that he's the type of player that he can take those, he can get 50, 60 yards on 4 receptions, 5 receptions, what have you. So personally, I like the receiving yards just a little bit more than the receptions, especially since, the Dolphins did a very good job tackling last week, but they do have a little bit of a tendency to let guys get yards after catch every once in a while.
Makes sense. So now we'll pull the Dolphins back up here. So we have the Devon Achane one, 20.5 yards for rush yards in the first 5 attempts. He's, again, without Alec Ingold, I don't know if this might be a safe under. What do you think?
I wouldn't touch it. I don't think the Raiders defensive line outside of Max Crosby is as good as what LA had with Braden Fisk and Jared Verse.
And Christian Wilkins is gone.
And there's no Christian Wilkins too. So I think that's one that I'm probably not touching either way, just because HN is so explosive. He could take 21 yards by himself.
And what about this one? Last week we said that we were going to take the over, and we ended up getting burned. So would we try to go under on this time?
Probably. I think he finishes with more receiving yards than rushing yards today. I don't think this is a big A-chain game.
All right, so we'll go ahead and go with that one. We're looking at Jalen Wright here, 6.5 rush attempts. Even in games where he ended up playing more, I really don't think, again, I understand what Ethan is talking about, that they want to get Jalen Wright more involved. I think Mostert gets out of the doghouse today. I don't think he's going to get that many rushing yards unless it's an absolute blowout and they just want Wright to get some reps.
I would say that this is the type of game where when you don't have Ingold, that the Dolphins should be leaning more on Raheem Mostert and Jalen Wright in the run game. Guys that can create yards by themselves. Devon
right, you said should. But you said should.
Space. Right, I did say should. I don't know if he will. Obviously, he's gone under in 4 of the last 5. I think that I would probably lean with you and say, you know what, until they show it, I probably won't believe it.
And the other thing, again, I have to mention this, is that with all the talk about Jalen Wright and talking about whether they should lean on Mostert more, they're more powerful backs, we've already seen the proof. The proof is in the snap counter and what we've seen on TV. They're trying to make Devon Achane the every down back, for lack of a better term. Like they are not. They're trying. Like look at the rushing attempts for Devon Achane compared to everybody else on the team. He has far and away more rushing attempts than everybody else on the roster. So I know that there's no such thing as a true workhorse back in this offense, but their number one guy is Achane, and there's no debate about that at this point.
No, certainly. I mean, he's the number one guy, and he will be for the foreseeable future. It's a little different, I think, in practice than it looks at times, but yeah, I agree.
Okay, now here's one that I feel like is very tricky, and I want this one's gonna does Malik Washington get a catch? One catch.
Yes, at least. I like to ride the trends on this stuff. Malik Washington is trending towards being a bigger part of the offense, so I think you'll continue to see more and more of them.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have room for one more. Let's take a look at here. Oh, hold on. Did this one just change? I think Jalen Wright's
it went up.
Look, it went from 7.5 to 6.5 rushing attempts just now.
No. The rushing yards went from 20 No, that was always at 6.5.
Oh no, okay. I feel like I'm losing.
The yards went,
I'm not used to
5 to
props
6.
being changed right in the middle of us talking about it. It's like this is the
What do they know?
folks. All right, so here's the one that really is very tempting for me. Jonnu Smith. Tua's not ignoring him. He's getting his catches.
What is Jonnu Smith's longest reception prop at?
Longest reception for Jonnu is 16.5.
Ooh, they made that number tough. I was hoping it would be something a little bit lower. I would probably play regular receiving yards.
I would play receiving yards. I think that volume is the key here with Jonnu.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I was thinking that the longest reception might be somewhere like 13 and a half, and I'd be like, that's easy, but 16 and a half is a little tougher.
All right. So that's all 6. And I love how they made it like I only get 65. I picked too many Dolphins, gentlemen.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, I guess it makes sense because if one goes right, then the others are likely to go right, you know?
Successfully submitted. Well, hopefully things go well for me. I would love to win this time. But in any case, any final thoughts before we call this pregame show over?
Final thoughts. Okay. The offense, I don't want to see them struggle running the football. I know Alec Ingold is out, but if you cannot run the football against the Raiders, even without him, slight red flag. Very slight red flag.
Well, Austin Jackson's gone. Remember, it's Kendall Lamb right now.
I get it. Still, it's the Raiders.
And I never thought we'd run into a place where we're like lamenting the fact that Austin Jackson is gone. But here we are.
Yeah. And then defensively, defensively is where I might have my MVP of this game because I think Chop Robinson gets the first multi-sack game of his career today.
Well, if he could do it against anybody, it probably would be someone like a Gardner Minshew. It's not like Minshew's not like I wouldn't call him bad. Like I guess if you want to let's do this. Would you call him the upper echelon of backup quarterbacks?
I would call him Gen Z Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I mean, I guess that's upper echelon for backup quarterbacks.
It is.
So maybe that's the key, Gardner Minshew next year to back up Tua.
Yeah, right. We
keep looking for somebody. Like somebody's got to be the guy. Like please, no more Skylar Thompson. I beg of you, no more Skylar. Like whether that's Tyler Huntley or some other veteran, just please no more Skylar. I've had enough of Skylar.
I agree.
All right. Here, let's do real quick. You have any score predictions? Like what happens?
Yeah. Dolphins roll relatively easy in this one. I have them 27-16.
27-16. I actually do think the Dolphins will win this one. Last week I think we all picked the Rams to beat them, but this week again the Rams are not the Raiders. The Raiders are not the Rams. I'm going to go ahead and pick Miami. I don't think they're going to score like 30 or anything, but I think they will get to something along the lines of like 27. And the Raiders again, they don't have Devontae Adams. They're relying solely on their tight end, which is a good bet against Miami. I'll give you that, but I think the Raiders will get something along the lines of 21, and that'll be the end of it. Now, again, it's not the overwhelming victory that we were hoping for, but a win is a win as far as I'm concerned. I am the guy. I keep saying this. I am the guy who believes in style points. If you look good, even if you win by this, if you look overall good, even if you end up winning by only like one touchdown, if you look good doing it, that matters to me. Because I have always said this, and people have made fun of me for it because, win's a win and whatever. I don't care, man. Style points. If you end up losing, but you put up a hell of a fight the whole way through, that matters to me more than if you ended up looking terrible and the other team looks just as terrible and you end up winning. That just means you're both terrible. That doesn't mean that you're a good team. If you end up losing, but you put up a good fight the whole way through, that matters more to me than if you suck the whole game and you just skate by the seat of your pants. Like that's not what I want to see. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always room to factor in the opponent in that whole thing. Because if the Dolphins play an ugly game but win against the Chiefs,
Yeah, no. That's,
yeah, I mean,
Well,
okay.
well, listen, to beat the Chiefs, to even get anywhere near beating the Chiefs, you still have to look good doing it. If you are bad against the Chiefs, you are going to get blown out. That's the reality.
It might be a rare day where both teams just look pretty bad on offense. They're not the same offense they used to be.
And yet they're still undefeated.
It's that Mahomes magic.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Once again, make sure you go check out prizepicks.com. Use that promo code 5. That will give you $50 in promotional funds the first time you put in a $5 bet when you use that promo code 5. All right. We will see you all at the end of the game for the Final Yard post-game show. Have a good one, everybody.